On a cold Christmas night, on a cold snowed-in street, 5 Christmases sadly remained incomplete. With packages, presents, cards long overdue, it seemed Santa himself just couldn't get through. And so 5 private, shy households would worryingly wait, as it seemed this year Christmas would come far too late. In one house, lost children, so far from their homes, still scared and still hungry from the war they had flown. Their parents still missing, how alone they'd both been, until this poor, kindly family had taken them in. They of course did their best, but their money was low, and now the food that they'd ordered had got lost in the snow. In this house, a granny, just filling her days since her family left her and moved far, far away. She looked forward to Sundays because that's when they'd call, but the phone lines had come down during this winter storm. And so, wrapped in a blanket, she imagined what fun her grandchildren were having as they played in the sun. Now in this house, a young boy surrounded by games, toy robots and tractors and puzzles and trains, but no one to play with. His mum always at work, so he could have all the toys that she thought he deserved. When of course all he really wanted was some time with his mum, but she'd been stuck at work since the storm had begun. Around the piano in this house so grand, parents proudly listening to their boy as he sang. But when they asked him what he wanted for Christmas this year, he said a beautiful dress. But they said that was weird. They said he couldn't have that, because he were a boy, that he should have something normal, like some tools or a toy. And finally, this house had a tall, brightly lit tree, and an old broken fireplace that wobbled and creaked. The young girl said she could fix it and asked for some tools, but her parents refused and said she'd just look a fool. Presents like that are for men and for boys. You can have a nice dress or some pink pony toys. And so 5 hopeful households waited that eve for their Christmas to come. But deep down they believed that the snow was too deep and the wind was too strong, and that no one could reach them through this wild winter storm. But as the night darkened and the cold frost moon glowed, a figure was fighting through the wind and the snow. He was dressed all in blue with a battered old hat, and over his shoulder was a large, heavy sack. When he reached the small street, he went up to each house, and through each frosty window he looked in from without. Once he'd been to each one, he smiled and touched his old hat, and then pulled out some parcels from his storm-beaten sack. Now, the address on each parcel was easy to read, yet this postman did something that was hard to believe. Some parcels for 8 he delivered to 7, and some of 7s to 8, and some of 10s to 11, and 11s to 10, but left nothing at 9. And then he once more touched his hat, and the doorbells all chimed. Then, to the sound of much joy and unlocking of doors, the postman picked up his sack and walked back in to the storm. But as presents were collected and taken inside, people's eyes were all drawn to that house, number 9, where the family and lost children were stood at their door. But on their porch were no presents, just snow, nothing more. But it was cold on their doorsteps, so they soon all rushed back inside and opened one present each on that Christmas Eve night. The girl was amazed at her new box of tools. "I love you so much. Thank you. Oh, thank you." Their parents were shocked as 'twas not what they'd bought, but their child was so happy that they said nothing more. Meanwhile, over the road, the boy could not express his delight at his present, a beautiful dress. His parents were shocked as 'twas not what they'd bought, but they smiled as they saw the sheer joy that it brought. While at house number 11, the old lady was sure that she'd not ordered this, a brand new football. It made her feel sad, for it would be a strange Christmas day, with no grandchildren here to laugh and to play. So she sat by her fire with her blanket all warm, when all of a sudden there was a knock at her door. "Excuse me, old lady, I don't mean to intrude, but my mum's still at work and I think this might be for you." The boy gave her a parcel that was heavy and full of needles and yarn and balls of new wool. "Why, thank you, young man," the old woman said, "and this must be for you, but was sent here instead." And she gave him the football and saw his face fall. "But I've no one to play with, no one at all." The granny had an idea, so the boy went to fetch all his toys from his house, well, the ones he liked best, and he brought them all over and had the best Christmas Eve ever, as he and the old lady sat and played games together. Now at house number 9, the couple felt bad, for they couldn't give their new children what the other families had. But then the children surprised them with a picture they'd made of the new family together, and at the bottom it said, "We can't thank you enough for the kindness you've shown. You gave us the best present ever. You gave us a home." The very next morning, Christmas Day had arrived, and the doorbell rang once more at house number 9. And there on their doorstep were 7, 8, 11, and 10. Yes, all of their neighbours had come to share Christmas with them. A boy and his mother were at the front of the queue. "We have too many toys. We'd like to share them with you." And behind them a granny who had knitted all night. "I made you some scarves. I do hope they're all right." And next a young girl. "I've built you a swing. I'll hang it from your tree with some very strong string." And then came a boy in a beautiful dress. "I wrote a new song for you. I hope I'm not overdressed." The rest of the parents were at the back of the queue. They had brought all their delicious, delightful cooked food. Turkeys and nut roasts and vegetable platters, puddings and ice creams and biscuits and crackers. Number 9 thanked them all gladly, and they all went inside, where they played, sang and ate, long into the night. That was when the families all realised that they truly believed that it's time spent together that makes Christmas complete. Meanwhile, far, far away, the postman's job was not done until he delivered some plane tickets to a certain old lady's son.